This is Leader Time by FedNet, your podcast source for remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor during the 119th Congress. On April 29th, Thune continued his attack on Democrats over border security as the partial Homeland Security shutdown continued. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, we need law enforcement. Nowhere was that more evident than on Saturday night when a gunman attempted to storm the White House Correspondents' Dinner in an attempt to kill the president. Individuals in the line of succession to the presidency and civilians who got in the way. Mr. President, we need law enforcement. We need the police officers who patrol our streets, the first to respond when someone is in danger or needs help. We need the FBI agents who investigate federal crimes, from money laundering to kidnapping. We need the Secret Service agents who protect the President and Vice President and other dignitaries. We need sheriff's offices and transit police and ATF agents. And yes, Mr. President, we need the federal law enforcement officers who patrol our borders and take dangerous illegal aliens off of our streets. Mr. President, you could be forgiven for thinking that I'm stating the obvious. Ask most Americans, and I think you'd find they say, of course, we need law enforcement. But that has always seemed to be obvious to my Democrat colleagues. The defund the police movement and abolish ICE movements were both embraced by members of the Democrat Party. And now Democrats are at it again. The Department of Homeland Security has been shut down because Democrats decided that they don't want to fund border security or immigration enforcement. They refuse to fund the Border Patrol. They refuse to fund immigration and customs enforcement. They're refusing to fund any physical presence at our borders or any agents to take dangerous criminal illegal aliens off of our streets. Not only that, the Democrat leaders made it very clear that his party doesn't even, I should say, respect the work that these law enforcement agents are doing. Nobody in this country respects ICE and Border Patrol, the Democrat leader said on the floor last week. And when asked to clarify his comments, to say whether he really thinks nobody respects agents who put their lives on the line to, for example, stop dangerous individuals from crossing the border, the Democrat leader declined to answer. He declined to answer, Mr. President. And I guess it's no surprise. Declining to fund these key law enforcement agencies is a pretty good clue that Democrats don't respect the sacrifices these agents make to protect our country. Mr. President, why do we need law enforcement officers? Because there are dangerous individuals out there who choose to do harm. That's just a fact of living in a fallen world. And no government program or liberal fantasy is going to erase that reality. And just as there are dangerous individuals already in our communities, there are dangerous individuals who would like to make their way illegally across our border. Drug traffickers, human traffickers, other criminals, terrorists. Border Patrol agents stop them. And when dangerous individuals do make their way into our country, immigration and customs enforcement agents work to take these dangerous individuals off of our streets. Now, Mr. President, Democrats may not like this reality. They may not like the fact that we need border security and immigration enforcement. But the fact remains that Border Patrol and Immigration Customs Enforcement are two agencies that play a key role in our safety. And the enormity of what Democrats have opted for cannot be overstated. No agents, zero agents at the border. No one, Mr. President, to stop dangerous individuals from making their way into our country. And no one to catch and deport these dangerous individuals if they do make it in. Republicans, of course, are not going to let that happen. As long as we're in charge, we're going to do everything we can to protect our borders and keep dangerous criminal illegal aliens off of our streets. And that's why, Mr. President, after weeks and weeks of attempting to negotiate a funding agreement with Democrats before they ultimately walked away, we are now set to consider a reconciliation bill to fund border security and immigration enforcement for the next 3 years. We've passed the budget resolution that will open the way for the final bill. And I hope my colleagues in the House will pass it in short order. We need law enforcement, Mr. President. It's too bad the Democrat Party doesn't always agree.
Schumer reacted to a Supreme Court ruling in a Louisiana redistricting case before remarks on DHS, the Iran war, and gas prices.
Mr. President, earlier this morning, the conservative majority on the Supreme Court took another step towards resurrecting the Jim Crow South in a decision that, for all practical purposes, upends half a century of precedent, defies the spirit of the American civil rights movement, and reverses generations of progress towards racial justice. The right-wing court today essentially declared it valid and appropriate for states to discriminate against racial minorities in drawing districts. The Voting Rights Act, a law written in the blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice of Americans who marched, who fought, and died for the right to vote and to prevent racial discrimination, has been diminished once again. The consequence of this decision is as clear as it is dangerous. Fewer protections for voters, more power for politicians to draw maps that silence them, particularly historically disenfranchised voters. Now the conservative court has tried to make it seem like its decision today was narrow and tailored. But let's be very clear. In the words of Justice Kagan, this decision is a demolition of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. It opens the floodgates for states across the South to redraw their congressional districts and make voters of color essentially invisible in our democracy. By some estimates, this decision could lead conservative state legislatures to draw as many as 19 additional seats that favor Republicans in the House. So far from being a narrow decision, this MAGA court is trying to give Republicans a leg up, an illegitimate leg up, in future elections. Let me say it again. This case is the MAGA court trying to give Republicans a leg up in future elections. It is a knife to the heart of some of the most important civil rights legislation that past generations marched for, organized for, and bled for. It will bring back the old sinister practices, long discarded to the dustbin of history. State legislatures diluting, erasing, and overpowering voters of color. Shame on the High Court. Shame on the MAGA justices rigging our elections. And this did not happen all at once. For years, this court, beginning with the Roberts decision and the awful Shelby County decision, chipped away at the Voting Rights Act, decision by a decision. Chief Justice Roberts bears a lot of the blame for this awful decision. And the commitment of equal representation has been broken before. But every time Americans have forced it back into the law, Senate Democrats will fight it once again to reverse this awful, awful decision. And even before this wretched decision, we knew the MAGA far right was hell-bent on trying to undermine our democracy. And so, we know that MAGA right is trying to rig our democracy. We knew it long before this decision. Donald Trump knows, his party knows, that they're going to lose this election in 2026, which is why they're working round the clock to tilt their scales unfairly in their favor. Trump issued another executive order a month ago to subvert our elections. Last week, they took aim at the Southern Poverty Law Center to chill speech and suppress actions from organizations that protect democracy. Trump continues to push for his SAVE Act to disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans. And he's stacked his administration with election deniers. So today, I am launching the Democratic Party's most expansive effort to date to protect the 2026 midterm elections and to shield them from the direct threats posed by Trump and MAGA Republicans. This afternoon, a group of senators and I will meet with former Attorney General Eric Holder, Mark Elias, and some of the country's top election experts to talk about how we can be ready for any and all threats that might come against our elections this fall. And I want to thank my Senate Democratic colleagues for joining in today's meeting. We know that some on the extreme right will try to rig the system. Donald Trump said it. He said he can't win the election except by rigging it. That's more or less what he said. Donald Trump's Justice Department sought to seize state voter rolls. Right-wingers raided election offices in Georgia. They pressed election officials in Arizona to turn over documents. Online radicals are threatening poll workers, spreading lies about voter fraud. And here in Congress, hard-right Republicans are trying to pass Jim Crow 2.0 in the SAVE Act. These threats are only going to intensify the closer we get to Election Day. So our Election Fraud Task Force represents the most aggressive and coordinated effort to date to make sure our elections this fall are protected. The goal of our task force is to ensure that every vote counts and every American can participate in our democracy without coercion, intimidation, or threats from Donald Trump or anyone else. Now on DHS, a lot's happening today. Last night, Donald Trump confirmed what I've been saying for weeks. Speaker Johnson and House Republicans are holding up funding for the Department of Homeland Security. They are holding it up, the Republicans, not Democrats. The White House said it, in effect. The White House put a memo urging House Republicans to stop dithering and pass the DHS bill that every Democrat and every Republican in the Senate passed unanimously, not once, but twice. For weeks, Republicans have tried to pin the blame for their shutdown on Democrats. The Trump administration just exposed how preposterous that lie is. Republican dysfunction is endangering our national security. House Republicans have been so busy fighting one another in the House that FISA may expire. Republicans, get your act together. Our national security depends on it. While Democrats have been trying to fund the Secret Service, TSA, Coast Guard, CISA, FEMA, and other crucial agencies, Republicans have been trying to jam through as much as another $140 billion for Trump's rogue agencies. And while Democrats have been working diligently and assiduously to try and lower Americans' costs, Republicans want to splurge on a $400 million gold-plated ballroom for the president. The last thing Americans want us spending their tax dollars on is a gilded palace for Donald Trump. What will Trump ask for Americans to pay for next? A moat? What else could $400 million get Americans? A year of child care for 30,000 families, skills for training 50,000 new electricians, plumbers, and welders, disaster loans for 10,000 households, and so much more. Keep in mind that just 1 month ago today, Donald Trump said, quote, "There's not one dime of government money going into the ballroom." Then put your money where your mouth is, President Trump. Stop trying to waste Americans' hard-earned tax dollars on this extravagance and get your party to work with Democrats to keep the American people safe. And finally, on Iran and gas prices. As I said, there's a lot going on. Just hours ago, Pentagon officials told Congress that Trump's disastrous war has cost taxpayers $25 billion. Can you believe it? At least $25 billion, and we're less than 2 months into this war. $25 billion is just the sticker price. Americans are also paying for this war at the pump. This morning, average gas prices in America hit $4.23 a gallon. That's a record high since the start of the war. Let me repeat. U.S. gas prices at the highest level since beginning of war in Iran. It's now $4.23, up 40% since Trump started his costly war with Iran. The price of gas is the highest been in 4 years. There's only one person to blame, Donald J. Trump. Trump says he's bleeding Trump says he's bleeding Iran economically, but he's draining the pockets of American families. And for what? The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. The Iranian regime is still radical. Our service members are still in harm's way. Trump still has no idea how to end this blunder. Instead, we hear reports that Trump's telling his aides to prepare for a protracted blockade. This morning, Trump warned that Iran better get smart soon. Well, it's Donald Trump who better get smart soon and end this war, unless he wants Americans to continue paying $4.23 at the pump. This week, Democrats will force a vote on our War Powers resolution for the 6th time. We'll continue to force votes every week as this war rages on. I urge my Republican friends, you can help bail Donald Trump out of his mess. Vote with us to end this war, or you, Republican senators, will continue to face the outrage of the American people. This Friday marks 60 days since Trump officially notified Congress that he had launched this reckless war. Under the War Powers Act, Trump must seek authorization for his war to continue beyond 60 days. After that deadline, Republicans will have no place to hide. No more hollow excuses to let this fighting continue. Republicans know Trump's handling of this war has been a disaster. They see how much the American people are hurting right now. How many war power resolutions do Democrats need to put before Senate Republicans until they do what's right? How many Americans will have to go bankrupt? How many days do our service members have to spend apart from their families? And how many people will have to die before Trump realizes that this war must end?
Thanks for listening. This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without express written permission from FedNet is prohibited.